Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called the Scoundrel Society, and it's from Action Phase Games and designers Travis Chance and Nick Little. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now and at the end of the video, and also down in the description section of the video. That'll take you to the page. Find out even more information about Scoundrel Society, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, what is the Scoundrel Society? This is a competitive game. Each player takes control of a member of a society, as it were. A society that likes to engage in games of, shall we say, well, stealing. You are trying to steal from a mark, a very wealthy individual who has many high-priced items, and you're trying to, you're going to a soiree and trying to steal items from that person. But of course, you're all doing it at the same time, and there really is no honor amongst thieves, so you may just try to swindle your own compatriots. At the same time, the law is on your heels and is going to arrest one of you who looks too suspicious. Let's go ahead and give a brief look at how the game is played. Then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of the Scoundrel Society. This is a competitive game for up to 5 players. The goal of the game is to have the most valuable items at the end of the game. Every single item that you have has a value to it. Whoever has the most total value at the end is going to be the winner. However, even if you have the most value, you may still lose the game. I'll explain that in a minute. The theme of the game, as I explained in the intro, is that you're a bunch of thieves who are trying to rob the mark. So first thing you're going to do is select a mark at random or by deterministic methods, however you want to do it. And here are an example of the mark cards. Now you have the Baron's Estate. Every mark card has a special ability that influences the loot in the game. So in this case, all silver loot has +1 value to it. Whereas you may have other cards, like there's several of these, like the Sheik, who says that gold loot has +1 value, or the Reclusive Artist, which means that all artwork has +1 value, or the Widow, where all sentimental items have +1 value. So the game uses icons to denote different types of goods and loot that you'll be stealing during the course of the game. Now, over here in the center of the table, where right next to where you're going to set the mark card, you have the loot deck. And from the loot deck, you're going to have a row of cards that is equal to the number of players +1. So we're going to assume a 3-player game here. And this is going to be refreshed at the start of every round. There's a lot of different types of loot in the game. Like I said, they all have different values, different types of loot, which are sometimes referenced by specific cards, just like the mark card. And they also have suspicion as well, and I'll get to what all that means. But let me show you some examples of what you might find in the deck. There's cards that are just worth their value or their suspicion. So you have gold earrings. So here you have the value of the card at the end of the game, the type of card that it is, and then the suspicion. If you have too much suspicion, you might lose the game. You have the marble sculpture, expensive painting. Those sort of are normal items. Gold coins, now these are cards that have special abilities. So you have +3 value if you have 4 or more coin loot. Emeralds, which have +2 value if you have any earrings. You have cards like the Treasure Map, which gives you no value, but when you steal this from the mark, you look at top 4 cards in the deck, steal one of them and place it into your stash, discard the remaining cards. So there's a lot of different cards that you have, lots of different special abilities. You have cards like the different types of documents. The Forged Deed, you get +1 value for each card left in the deck at the end of the game. It gives you no value on its own, but it does give you 3 suspicion. The Irrefutable Proof, when you place this into your stash, you lose a suspicion token. And the Forged Birth Certificate, if this is in your stash at the end of the game, your suspicion total is reduced by 2. Now, that suspicion is very important because at the start of the game, what you're going to do among all the other different types of setup that you need to do, you're also going to take the Constable card. This is Constable Cramphorn's card. It's missing art. Remember, this is a prototype version of the game. I probably should have stressed that at first. And the Constable card is going to be shuffled into the bottom 9 cards of the loot deck. When he comes up, the game is going to end immediately. And I say when he comes up, either when he comes into the row, when someone looks at him in the deck, however someone pulls this card from the deck, that's immediately going to end the game. And at that point, you're going to add up the value of all of your different loot cards that you have. However, whoever has the most suspicion, either from the suspicion tokens that you'll be gaining during the game, or the items that you have in your stash that are going to be giving you suspicion, add up all that suspicion, and whoever has the most is immediately eliminated from the game, regardless of how much value their loot has. So you cannot win if you have the most suspicion. The last few things you need to do for the setup, you're going to determine who the first player is. Every player is going to get a copper coin loot, which is just worth 1 value, and it doesn't count against your loot total because you can only have 3 other loot under your control, not in your stash, but under your control during the game. And then everyone's going to get a character card. There are several different characters that you may have a chance to play as members of the society, and they all have different special abilities. So here you have Dr. Cornelius Pfeffercorn. Now, there's 2 different things here. You have their grift ability and you have their knack ability. The knack ability is always going to be on and may reference specific things. So this one says, whenever you would steal loot from the row, you may steal it from the top of the deck instead. The grift ability, however, has to do with the action cards, which I'll explain in a moment. Whenever you would be allowed to use your grift ability, you're going to refer to that box. So Dr. Cornelius here has steal 1 loot from the row, and you may place 1 loot you control into the row if you do steal 1 loot from the row. And you have Miffy Schultz. And I'm not going to go through all their special abilities, but just to give you an idea. Butterfield, Vincenzo Peru, Blanche Lupin. You have a lot of different characters that you can choose from. And they all have different abilities, so there's a lot of variety. All right, I mentioned a moment ago the action cards. Every player is going to get the same set of 5 action cards at the beginning of the game. Every action card has 2 boxes on it. One of them is going to occur if you're the only person that took that action in a round. The other one, the bottom one, only occurs if multiple players have done it. And it's usually the better ability is the top one, but there's one exception to that case. So this is the snatch card. This one says if the top box, if you steal 2 loot from the row. The bottom one, if multiple people have done the ability, you only steal 1 loot from the row. This is the scheme card, and this one is the one that activates your grift ability. So if you're the only person that did this, you use your grift ability. The bottom one is in any order, you use your grift ability and you place 1 loot into your stash. So this is actually the only action card that is better if everyone does it, or multiple people do it, I should say. The sneak card, you steal 1 loot from the top of the deck, place 1 loot with 1 or more suspicion into your stash. The stash, by the way, just to clarify now, is you actually put it underneath your character card. That means no one can touch it. Or if multiple people have done this, you choose 1, steal 1 loot from the top of the deck, or place 1 loot with 1 or more suspicion into your stash. The store card is the only card that does the exact same thing no matter how many people play the card. Place 1 loot into your stash. Putting a card into your stash, like I said, prevents it from anyone screwing with it, and you'll have it at the end of the game. Switch, top ability, exchange 1 loot with another player, place 1 loot into your stash, or just exchange 1 loot with another player if multiple people do the ability. So how the turns are going to work, like I said, you're going to determine who the first player is, and then simultaneously every player is going to take a card from their hand. That determines the action that they're going to be taking, and then flips them over, says what their ability is, and then starting from whoever the first player is, they're going to resolve those abilities. Now, if in this example, the first player chose the snatch action, and he or she is the only one that has done that, so they get to steal 2 loot from the row. And by the way, the row does not refill into the start of the next round, which means that if multiple people had done an action that lets them take loot from the row, if there's not anything left there by the time your turn comes around, tough luck. Them's the breaks right there. Now the next player chose the sneak action, but multiple people did the sneak action, so we have to do the bottom part. This one says you choose 1, steal a loot from the top of the deck, or place 1 loot with 1 or more suspicion into your stash. So right here we have diamonds. Now diamonds are the only card that's still out here in the row that has suspicion, so this player is going to go ahead and take that card and put it into the stash, which is permanently under the player card, which means no one can mess with it. If something's out in front like this, that means it's under your control, but it's not in your stash and people can steal it from you. This person is also doing sneaks, but she's going to actually take 1 from the top of the deck and put it in front of her, and that is a gold coin. So that is typically how the game is going to work. You're going to keep going around playing cards, but you do not replenish your action cards right away. You leave them next to your character card. And then once every player has, since you're all doing this simultaneously, once every player has played all 5 of their action cards, only then do you reset them back into your hand. At the end of every round, you're also going to pass the first player marker so that someone else has a shot to do their actions first. And that's it. You're going to keep going until you get down through the loot deck, resetting it every time. When you get down to the bottom of the loot deck, you'll run into the constable card, who will end the game, arrest the person who has the most suspicion, and then of the people that are left, you're going to see who has the most value amongst the items that they have in their stash and under their control. That is the Scoundrel Society. Let's get to my final thoughts. Right off the bat, Scoundrel Society has an interesting theme. You are all thieves who are trying to rob this mark. And that's just a fun theme for people to be playing as. While at the same time, attached to this theme, you have interesting game mechanisms. You and the other players have to put down your cards simultaneously to determine which action you're going to take. And by doing that, there's an interesting sort of game there of trying to outwit and outguess your opponent, because first and foremost, the turn order is very critical and important. So if you know that you're not going to be going first this round, that's definitely going to modify what cards you're going to be putting down. As well, every action has, or almost every action has a different special ability or different ability that you use depending on whether or not you're the only person to do it or whether every or multiple people are doing it. And so that's an interesting game there as well. It's like, do I really think that people are going to be trying to stealing from the center row this turn? If they're not, I can get the most maximum benefit out of this card. If they are, at least I'm still doing something. But then again, there's only a limited amount of cards out there in the row. So if I'm going further back in the turn order, again, going back to that, I may end up with nothing. So how am I going to do this? So there's this really interesting tension to the game with that regard. On top of that, if the game was just about, set collection, just get as many cards worth as much money as possible, okay, whatever. And that is how you're going to win the game, is by having the most valuable items. But some of the items make you very suspicious. It may incur the wrath of the constable. So this is also a game about making sure that you're not raising too much suspicion. You can get a ton of points, as far as value from the items, but also have tons of suspicion, and then you're out. It doesn't matter how much you took. So that's another interesting level of tension that's added to the game. This is similar to Cleopatra in the Society of Architects, and how you can just be doing incredibly well during the game, but if you took too much corruption, you're getting thrown to the crocodiles. Now, there's no crocodiles in the Scoundrel Society, but the base mechanism there is the same. However, the whole presentation of Scoundrel Society and and what it brings to the table is much lighter, much more family friendly. It offers strategy while at the same time being very fast to learn, very fast to set up, and very fast to play. And I think that's going to make it a very accessible game. Tons of people are going to want to try it because it has that light theme and light gameplay while just giving you that little bit of edge to, as a gamerly gamer, as people are fond of pointing out that I say too much, as a gamerly gamer, you can still find a lot to enjoy with it despite how light it is. So it's kind of got that good blend of things going on there. And if that's the kind of game that interests you, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen and then down in the description section of the video. That'll take you to the page. You'll find out even more information than I could possibly give you here about the Scoundrel Society, and hopefully you'll consider backing the project. That has been the Scoundrel Society from Action Phase Games. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.